Welcome in, everybody, to Extreme Radio, sponsored by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com, request your appointment online, mention you're with 8-Man Extreme, you get $20 off your new patient offices visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way, and sponsored by Dr. Sterling Foster. Go to drsterlingfoster.com for all your digestive issues and your chiropractic needs.
So, am I on?
There you go.
Now I'm hot. All right. Ooh, wow. Sorry about that, folks. Got home 1 o'clock the last 2 mornings from our ball games. Great ball games. Had a great time this weekend. Really, really rushed. So I'm really thankful that I've already gone to IHateBuyingInsurance.com. Our guy, Joe Graves, hooks you up. Just give him a chance. Just give him a chance. That's just like Bowling Green had to get in the playoffs. Just give him a chance. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. And no, I did not eat any Jets pizza this weekend. Today, I feel bad that
we got to
get
Jets pizza in the studio next week.
We do have to get some more Jets in the studio. It's been a crazy setup. Just rushing back and forth, trying to get this 2019 Chick-fil-A Extreme All-Star Game stuff squared away. Dealing with issues, dealing with, making sure the season gets wrapped up correctly.
And you need fuel to get through that.
You got to get fuel. You got to have the fuel to get through it, including the BLT pizza that needs to come back. But you got to have fuel to get through that. So Jets pizza, it's also good on sore throats, which I have right now after yelling my head off at a Predators game Wednesday night, having a day of rest, and then calling 2 football games, and then doing this show today.
Yep.
And it's not even like we have it's not even like we can rest until Friday, Spence.
Yeah,
got some big news on that.
Yeah, we'll get to that later in the show.
Oh,
but
man.
I told you pre-show we're gonna get into it later.
Fine.
But hey, it's been a really active week for Week 8. The playoff picture is solidified for the North. We'll get to that later in the show. But as always, time to recap Week 8. What a fantastic weekend for 8-Man football.
Huge.
We will start out with we will start out on your helmet schedules. We'll go from top to bottom from the Friday games. We'll start with the earliest one of the day. The Lighthouse Christian School Lions collided with the St. Andrews Suwannee Mountain Lions. The Mountain Lions looking for their first win, and unfortunately not getting it at home, a 64-16 loss. The Lions got it done on the road, and for the Mountain Lions, it's really tough for them, especially with them taking their they had 2 bye weeks because they forfeited their ESL game, so really tough for them. But I believe Kayla McLean was still active in that game, and kudos to Lighthouse for getting it done on the road. Yeah,
you knew one of the teams was going to come out. Both of them went in winless. You knew someone was going to have to come out a winner because we really don't do ties. But, they needed the 2 weeks off to get some rest, to recoup, to, get back in the swing of things. Excuse me. But, for Lighthouse, Aiden Hooper kept balling, 12 of 15, 382 yards, 4 touchdowns. Christian Sharp had 5 catches with a touchdown. Jamari Teague, over 100 yards receiving a touchdown. Nick Kennard showing up, the senior basketball player, came out for the team. 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, 117 yards rushing. So he gets it done. Defensive side of the ball, man, I've been hyping up Dedrick McClain all year. 9.5 sacks, 9.5 tackles, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and a safety. And then Teague added a pick 6. So Lighthouse was rolling up on the mountain Friday afternoon. Huge win for them. Of course, they go into a game Friday night with Bowling Green, just kind of like a makeup. They had a great game the first time they played, and, of course, you want another great game. And so I think that's what we'll end up getting. But a big win for Lighthouse. If you're Suwannee, you know what? You got 2 very winnable games coming up. You've got Classical and you've got the Tennessee Heat. The Heat rolling a little bit, but I still think that, Coach Hargis could cook up some stuff. And he could get them back in the mix in terms of picking up a win to close the season out. Been a tough year. They do have some ballers, but it's just it's hard every time you've got guys that have never played football before, and they're trying to get up to speed on it.
Yeah, for the Mountain Lions, it's tough. They got a quick turnaround on the road against the Franco Classical School Knights, and for the Lighthouse Christian School Lions, they picked up a game, which we'll talk about that later in
I just
our
said that.
previews, which you did. You previewed it. We'll talk about
You
it
weren't paying
more.
attention.
We'll talk about it more in depth going later
Okay,
into
that's
the
fair.
show. Looking at the rest of the games, we'll start with the games that we were not at. Christian Community School, the defending conference champions, hosted the Ezel Harding Eagles. It was a story that built up throughout the season. The defending conference champions and the new kids on the block. Well, the new kids are just tearing
New kids
it
on the block.
up. They tearing it up in their first season of 8-man football. The only loss against the defending national champions from Alabama, but against the defending conference champions, 54-34. The Colts. They kept it pretty close throughout the beginning of the game, but the Eagles just came back and rallied. And it just goes to show how powerful the South is this year. Might see the first time in MTAC history where two South teams collide for the championship. We'll get into that a lot later in the coming weeks. But for Ezel Harding to be able to get that 20-point victory against the Colts, especially at May Flanders Field, which everybody knows it's incredibly hard to win at May Flanders Field. Great job on them. And for a Christian Community, a tough loss for them. You got 2 losses in the South, and, of course, they've already clinched a number 1 seed in the North. So it's just really interesting to see how that game panned out.
Well, and I want to be careful how I phrase this. I want to be positive. I want to be, as factual as I can be. CCS has dominated at home ever since they started playing at May Flanders. They had a couple years where they struggled. But the last couple of years, especially the last 2 going unbeaten in the regular season, they have dominated at home. That's a tough field. Like we said last week, we got updated on it. That is the only 80-by-40 field in the MTAC and Kentucky and Tennessee. It's the only true 8-man field, and so for all these teams having to play on a 50-yard width field, 52 yards. You lose those 10 to 12 yards, and it's there's a lot of adjustment you have to make. But even nothing's permanent, not even presidency or being in charge. But nothing's permanent, and that just shows how well Ezel was able to game plan and get ready for playing on that field. You look at the stats, and Derek Griffin continued to roll. A couple rushing touchdowns for him. Braxton Coleman, we love Kadarius Price, and Price scored on Friday. But Braxton Coleman was able to bring 2 touchdowns to the table and give Ezel a little boost. In the second half, you know what? Again, I'm very impressed with Micah Jones and the way that coaching staff has been able to use him. They were able to adjust. He threw a couple touchdowns to Brooks Pugh. He ran for 1 in the first half, threw 1 to Stapleton. And then, of course, Pugh had the 75-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. So I believe the second week in a row he's had a kick return or punt return for a touchdown. But, for Ezel, they just keep rolling, and it's incredible how well that coaching staff has been able to get the guys on track. For CCS, you know what? It's a little bump in the road. Yeah, you took 2 losses, but they're in the South. Like you said, they still locked up that number 1 seed. They're still going to have a week of rest, and then they're going to get to host the game. So whether, you look at the way that the playoffs are stacking up right now, whether it's Lancaster, Ezel, Riverside, now they've all played at that field, but it takes some special game planning. So, for Lancaster, they've never won on that field. Riverside, they've never won on that field. Mm-hmm. So for those coaches, it's going to take a little bit of extra trying to figure out how you can almost shrink plays down because, let's say you have a jet sweep. You're accounting for, hey, I've got an extra few yards from the hash marks to the sidelines. But you get to May Flanders, you've got to condense it a little bit. You've got to go up the middle just a little bit more, unless you've got some speedsters like a Gage Holman who can cut that corner and take off, or a Derek Griffin. The speed that he brings to the game is incredible. So, a huge win for Ezel just to come in. I mean, that you look throughout the season, and they lost to Evangel. They've played some teams that have struggled this year. That was a huge statement win for Ezel to kind of stake their claim and say, you know what, we're here, and if being 5-0 so far wasn't enough, now they're 6-0 in conference, and it's they're rolling. Lancaster, man, that's a huge matchup the last week of the season. It just it's like I'm a wrestling fan, and I know it's predetermined. It's not fake, but it's predetermined. But that's kind of what they do is you got two guys and they're beating guys here and here, or even MMA, boxing. You have two guys they're beating here and here, or it's sports, NFL. You beat guys. Two guys are just rolling. Two teams are just rolling, and at some point they're going to have a head-to-head, and it's going to be a collision, and that's what we're going to have the last week of the season. For CCS, again, you're not out of it. You're good. So, yeah, it was a tough loss. But
and they've got film on a potential opponent they'd face in the playoffs.
Exactly.
On how things work out.
And you have experience playing that opponent too. So that's always a positive.
Yeah, it's really big for both sides as well. Another motivational win. That might be the first time in MTAC history where a team goes completely undefeated in their first 8-man football season in conference. At least in conference, so Ezel might make MTAC history.
I think I would have to look back at 2009 with Franklin Classical, because MTAC started in 2008 and Classical switched to independent 11-man that year. So then they came in 2000. They came in 2009 to the MTAC. So I'd have to look at that. But if they did take a loss in that regular season in conference, then, Ezel would be the first team to do so.
It'd be incredible for them. Ezel Harding, they've got a divisional matchup to officially lock a playoff berth if they win at Franklin Christian Academy on FCA's senior night. And for Christian Community, they've got a long travel down to Huntsville, just across the border, but from White House, it's a decent travel to face off against the Freedom Cowboys based in Alabama. Looking at the rest of the schedule there, Lancaster Christian travel just across the street from where we were to face off against the Franklin Classical School Knights. A little jousting match in Franklin. A pleasure to see. 52-14. Really interesting to look at the box score on that because it was tied 14-14 at one point. Classical kept it close. They tried to hold it out, but then Lancaster Christian just turned on the Jets. They knew immediately what had to happen, and they just pushed through.
Well, speaking of Classical, let me throw this in there. So I just looked, 2009, they have a loss to Kings Academy, which that would have been an 11-man game, but they did go unbeaten in their first year in the league in conference. They beat Sacred Heart, FCA, Holloway, CCS, Aaron Academy, Tennessee Heat, and Curry Ingram. So
this would be
and
the
they ended
second
up winning the championship. This would be the second team to do so, that's an impressive. And of course, Classical has the advantage of they had played those teams before prior to 2008. 2008 they switched over to Independent 11, and so they kind of did the same thing Ezel did. They played a team that wasn't in conference, ended up taking a loss, but in terms of in conference, they were undefeated in their first year in official first year in MTAC.
Yeah, especially for them. But at least from what I said from the Lancaster Knights game, again, it was tied at 14 in the box score. Very close to the beginning, but then Lancaster turned on the Jets.
Yeah, and Lancaster just keeps rolling. I mean, it's Classical really did. They exposed some stuff, I think, on Classical. Maybe not exposed is the right word. They were able to take advantage of some stuff right off the bat. I mean, and if you doubt that, if you question that, I mean, just look at how I'm going to pull up the scoring updates so that you can see how it went. It was 2-0 Lancaster. They got a safety. They scored a touchdown. Bragg threw it to Moore, and then they got another touchdown. No, Bragg to Moore might have been the second touchdown. But then Samuel Hubbard was able to hit Clay Lott for a touchdown. Hubbard was able to hit Josh Salstrom again for a touchdown. So at that point, it's 14-14 first quarter. That's insane. And from there, Lancaster took off. 20-14, 28-14, 36-14, 44, 52. So 52-14 the final. Classical not able to score there in the second half. But in terms of that first quarter, they were neck and neck with Lancaster. And that's something that some teams can't say. So in terms of classical, that team seems to just be getting better and better. Samuel Hubbard developing. They've still got Josh Salstrom, who's only a junior. Of course, Josh Austin showing up. He didn't have any touchdown catch the other night, but in terms of defensively, I'm guessing he showed up. I haven't looked at the stats yet, but he had to have showed up that night. So it's a huge, huge win for Lancaster if you're classical. It's a what was it that Butch Jones used to call it? A character win. It was a big character win, and that's something that they needed. So classical again, they're in the same boat. I said that the game Friday night was a very winnable game for Swanee against classical. Flip it around for classical. Swanee's a very winnable game. FCA is a very winnable game. So you're already sitting at 2 wins. You could pull off 2 more and end your season at 4-4, 4-5. So nothing's out of the realm for them right now.
It's of course, best of luck to Lancaster and Classical in the rest of their seasons. Unfortunately, Classical being mathematically eliminated from the postseason, but they're going to give it their all in their last 2 games of the season, especially next week with one of their rivals, the St. Andrew Swanee Mountain Lions at home. And then they close it out after a bye week on fall break to host the Battle of Franklin against the Franklin Christian Academy Falcons on Thursday, the 17th of October. We're only 2 days out from October. Can you believe that? 2019. We're only 2 days out at this point. It's incredible. The other game that we were able to broadcast, the other game that was going on that night that we broadcasted on Friday, Franklin Christian Academy had their homecoming game against the Freedom Cowboys, and the Cowboys always bring a tough matchup for them. It was 12-6 at one point, but then the Cowboys decided we want to get to the positive win column. 44-14, the final score, and really tough for Franklin Christian because of them losing their starting quarterback, Daniel Holcomb, with the torn ACL and such. All the best to him. Just really tough for them. And, of course, Zach Dooley could hold his own, the sophomore, at the quarterback position. But like you said earlier in the few weeks, FCA has really felt the effects of not having John Buchanan in the backfield. And their defense has tried to hold themselves. But we updated the stats today for Franklin Christian, out of 6 games, they have allowed 220 points total combined. And best team in the league right now with that, out of 7 games, Lancaster's only allowed 74 points between their opponents. But for Franklin Christian, it's a tough loss. But for the Freedom Cowboys, it's a great motivational win, especially going up to the big house next week.
Well, it was 12-6,
exactly.
And FCA had the ball. Excuse me. That's what happens when you yell your heads off at Pred's game and then you call 2 games in a row. So it was 12-6, and they coughed up some fumbles. And the thing is, Freedom was able to turn those fumbles into points. They jumped out to a big 44-6 lead. And Andy Reid Andy Reid broke 12 tackles in an 8-man football game. Go ahead and do the math on that, folks.
Exactly.
By the way, Classical with winning the last 2 games would be 5-4. I wanted to correct myself on that. They would be 5-4 overall. But in terms of Freedom, man, they've got a tough game Friday night with Christian Community. They've played a tough schedule in Alabama, playing teams like Ezekiel Academy, who you may or may not see next Friday. Just throwing that out there. They played Evangel, of course, who we've covered them, and they've played a couple teams, but of course they played the Heat and beat the Heat. They played Riverside and lost to Riverside. So it's just from game to game. But Jaden Hermina is an insane player. Getting to see him in person the other night. He's a great player. He only had 2 touchdowns on the night, maybe 3 touchdowns, but he's an incredible running back. The Cowboys have talent, and Coach Collins has done a great job of getting those guys going. They really don't throw the ball a whole lot, but they really don't need to throw the ball a whole lot. Mm-hmm. They have a strong run game, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when CCS heads down to Freedom. Just to see those 2 teams collide. I'm trying to remember. I think they play on a regulation field, if I'm not mistaken, for Freedom. I'm going to look into that. But it's a big win for Freedom to come up to Tennessee and pick up that win. I think it was their first win in Tennessee probably since the last time they played Franklin Christian. I think they beat them. But it's a big win for them. Like you said, with Franklin Christian, they're feeling the effects of losing Holcomb. But I feel like the guys have gotten behind Dooley, and they support Dooley. Dooley's only a sophomore, so there's a lot of growth that can be done there. But, it's a tough loss for FCA, but you got to get back up in the saddle. You got to get ready for Friday night.
Yeah, the FCA, they got to get ready for their Friday night senior night quick as they're hosting the Ezel Eagles. A tough matchup for them. Freedom Cowboys, like we said, Christian community will travel down to Huntsville to be hosted by Freedom. Saturday, there were 2 games going on. The one that we were not at, the Tennessee School for the Deaf, collided with the Mississippi School for the Deaf. And
Freedom does play on a full-size field, I believe.
So full-size field.
I'm looking at it. It looks like
team.
a full-size field.
At least we're looking from the pictures.
What do you think?
And such. It looks like it might be a full-size field.
Looks about like a full-size field.
Probably about 50 by 100.
You can kind of see the soccer outlines, but it looks like it'd be a full-size. So, anyways.
Yeah, probably 50 by 100. 60-36, the final score. The Vikings hosted the Mississippi School for the Deaf, and just a tough loss for the Vikings. I believe that puts them on the season right now. I believe
Why are you guessing? You have 8manextreme.com.
That's right.
They're 1-3 overall, 1-2 in the Mason-Dixon Conference with a super winnable game. They've already beat South Carolina. Freedom does play on a full-size 100-yard field, so. Shout out for that. But
60-36, tough loss for the Vikings.
Yeah, homecoming. You've got all your fans, your former players there. You want to represent. They might have even had Rashard. I think it's Rashard Witherspoon that actually played at Gallaudet University up in Washington D.C. It's a college just for deaf and hard of hearing kids to play college football. I think it's D3. But he did play the last 4 years there, so major props to him being able to make that happen. But great job for TSD. Like you said, a tough loss. Mississippi has always been a great rivalry for them, but a very winnable game coming up Thursday night against South Carolina. Like I said, they've already beat them once. Here's the thing about the TSD about TSD too. They went on the road to South Haven. They went on the road to South Carolina. Then they went to Alabama. So now they have a stretch of some home games where they can kind of get back in the saddle, get back in the swing of things, and get rolling again. And that's what they need to do. And I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and they flip-flopped that on the helmet schedule. So they traveled first to South Carolina. So now they're hosting them this Thursday night. And one other game that we had the pleasure of calling, the Bowling Green Christian Academy Warriors traveled down to Mount Juliet.
Respect. You got it.
64-84 was the final score. The Heat managed to get the win, get the playoff berth, and for the Warriors, they kept fighting back. The mercy rule was enacted at one point, but they kept scoring and got it to within a 20-point game because, and not only that, but highest combined score of any game we have broadcast in 8Man Extreme's history. So it was a high-scoring game.
It might have been one of the highest scoring games in MTAC history.
Yeah, it's lasted about 3 hours, so fantastic for the Tennessee Heat to clinch that playoff berth for the second year in a row. For the Warriors, of course, they've got 2 more games on the year. So, I mean, tough loss with them being eliminated from the playoffs. But same thing for both teams. They're still going to play their games out regardless of playoff berths or not. They're still going to play hard. It just with Gage Holman, it was really difficult for him to try and be the only guy to make big plays for the team, and it was an offensive-heavy game. The defenses couldn't keep up with them.
Well, I mean, David Crow showed up. Levi Anthony was able to make some plays for Bowling Green. A lot of guys kind of don't pay attention to a guy like Cooper Guy at center, but I mean, Bowling Green, I think they had a couple bad snaps possibly. I'd have to go back and look. But, he's been kind of a consistent guy. Yeah, Rashard, this is completely off topic, but Rashard Witherspoon did play at Gallaudet. I was looking up. But, anyways, completely off topic. But, for Bowling Green, man, it's a rebuilding year. I mean, they only lose 3 seniors next year, this year. So, they've got a lot of talent, a lot of young guys who are trying to come up. For the Heat, though, the Corley twins came in, guys who had sat out 2 weeks. And Matt at quarterback was really able to contribute. You saw Brandon Goolsby move to receiver, and I mean, you can call him the Ghoul because he kind of got unleashed in terms of receiver. He was really able to explode. He had 4 catches, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns, I believe. Corley had some rushing touchdowns on the day. Let's see how many he had. He had 1, 2. He had 5 total touchdowns on the day. And then Trace Aldrett, a guy who's kind of been a steady running option for the Heat so far. He had 2 touchdowns. So just a great job. Let's see. Corley had 1, 2, 3 touchdown runs and some touchdown passes. So a great game for the Heat. Great complete. I mean, it was. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It was like Thanksgiving dinner. Of course, there's always some things you can adjust, but it was a complete game. So they were able to bring a lot to the table. Corley did have 4 touchdown passes and 4 touchdown runs. So a huge part of that offense. And you might think, well, how it's insane that he had 4 touchdown runs, 4 touchdown passes. Well, they scored 84 points, third most in their history. They scored 90 against Sacred Heart in 13, and they scored 99 against FCA in 11. So they were right there on the edge. But for Bowling Green scoring those 3 touchdowns in the end, including a punt return by Gage Holman, they just completely were able to. To stay in the game. Like you said, the mercy rule was rolling, but they stayed in it. So a shout out to Bowling Green and Don Brown for never quitting, never giving up. But for the Heat, that's a big win. And you look at that game with South Haven. We talk about the Lancaster-Ezell game the last week of the season. That's a big game in the South. But this Heat South Haven game, especially when you look at what happened last year, first time they ever played each other on a football field. Last year, in the regular season, they played in a jamboree. But last year was the first time they'd ever actually played each other on a football field, and it was such a great game. So you look at the weight of this game coming up Friday night between the two, and it's massive.
I like the thing you mentioned about Bowling Green because, yes, they're only losing 3 seniors. Same for the Tennessee Heat. They're only losing 2 of their seniors. So a lot of youth, a lot of seniors coming up for the Tennessee Heat. So next year, both Bowling Green and the Tennessee Heat are going to be even bigger forces to be reckoned with than they are now.
Absolutely.
It's going to be really interesting. So congratulations to the Heat on clinching the playoff berth. Tennessee Heat continues marching on. Next week, their matchup against the South Haven Christian School Patriots at home. That determines who hosts the playoff game. As for the Warriors, they picked up another game that doesn't count for their in-division record against the Lighthouse Christian School.
Which we mentioned
Lions.
earlier, yeah.
Yep, that one is out in Antioch. All right, that's
no, it's not. It's in Bowling Green.
It says at LCS on here because they already hosted. Okay, well somebody told me the wrong thing because they went to
Lighthouse hosted Bowling Green early in the season, so this game's in Bowling Green.
Okay, somebody told me the wrong thing. That's all right.
No, I probably told you the wrong thing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, while we're getting our guests set up for today's interview, we've got the playoff picture on screen. So here's what we're looking at as of updated right before the show. Obviously, the Colts clinched the number 1 seed in the North. They get a first-round bye, and they're hosting the semifinal. For the number 1 and number 2 seed in the South, same in-division record between the Ezell Eagles and the Lancaster Knights. So by the tie-breaking rules, as we were told, it would be a coin flip if the season were to end today for who hosts the first-round game and who hosts the second-round game. So, of course, that's going to come down to the final week of the regular season between Lancaster and Ezell. It's going to be determinatory of that based on tiebreakers, regardless of who wins and who loses this week's games in the South. As for the rest of the seedings, number 3 seed right now is Riverside Christian Academy Knights. A win by Riverside on Friday locks their fate in the playoffs. With Riverside winning, they're locked into the playoffs. But if they lose and Franklin Christian loses, then they are officially locked in for the playoffs at that number 3 seed. They'll officially be locked in there. So Riverside wanting to get the job done against Lancaster, but may be fans of Ezell Harding for the Friday night game. It depends on how that goes.
Yeah, they're massive Ezell Harding fans this Friday night. There's no question about that.
So the rest of the playoff bracket, as we said, both congratulations to the Tennessee Heat. They have clinched the playoff berth in they've clinched a playoff berth, and that matchup, the final. No, the final game between two North teams other than CCS Lighthouse that has impact on the playoffs, that is going to be in Mount Juliet between the Patriots and the Heat. Whoever wins that hosts the playoff game. The other one travels on the road to either Lancaster or Ezel Harding, at least as it stands. So that's what we're looking at, the playoff bracket right now. No clue really who's going to win that Ezel and Lancaster matchup at the end of the season. It's really close, and it's getting down the stretch here as we go into week 9. It's pretty intense.
It's getting insane. This is the best, but the most wonderful time of the year. Well, third, fourth, one of the most wonderful times of the year.
And speaking of one of the most wonderful times of the year, the same could be said for our guest in studio. Clinched a playoff berth last night against the Bowling Green Christian Academy Warriors, and pushing on to their 11 weeks and now guaranteed 12 weeks straight of football games. We have the pleasure of having the head coach of the Tennessee Heat on the show, Mr. Ryan Scott. Coach,
Scott.
How does it feel for the second year in a row? I know I asked you this on the post-game interview, but how does it feel for the second year in a row to be in the playoffs?
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, we've had to scrap, each year. It hasn't been, something where we've coasted in. It's a lot of different moving parts, but always grateful to have an opportunity to extend the season. And just, as I said to my boys, proud of them for winning the games that really count, and hoping that we can continue to do that and build on, just some things that we've been working on all season that are finally starting to solidify.
Coach, everyone knows 2016, the Heat co-opted with Hendersonville Christian. Both schools really struggling with numbers. 2017, you came back kind of in a rebuilding mode, and then you've made the playoffs the last 2 years. Who were some of the guys that were kind of key in terms of getting that up and running and getting guys? I know it might be some guys who graduated last year, but who are some guys on the team this year that have kind of seen that progress and it means a little bit more to them maybe to be able to make the playoffs again?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many contributors. I mean, as you know, and I think it may have been, if I'm right, that may have been the last time I was on your show, was having an interview when we were trying to decide if we were going to continue on as a team. And so, after the Hendersonville Christian Co-op, we had a rough first year out of the gates on our own, and but we ended the season well, and there's just so many boys that contributed to that. Certainly, Coach, I'm gonna shout out Coach Tony Diaz, is a big contributor in helping us get all that take place. And then, of course, his two boys, the Diaz boys, the Goolsby brothers, Brandon's still playing. Justin was a part of that HCA group. The Savely brothers, and Micah DeGrood, and just there's a lot of other names. James Redding, just a lot of other names that were a part of that. And we still honor them for just staying in the fight and helping us keep moving in the direction that we've been going, and we're growing, which is great. It's something that you like to see, not having to worry about numbers every year, knowing that we were able to field the team and start teaching some things that hopefully will carry into season after season.
Now, obviously, we've covered you guys several times on Saturdays, and it's I don't know. For me, it would be a double-edged sword where the week that you play on a Saturday, you have a little bit, have an extra practice maybe, but then you have a shorter week in terms of resting, going into the next week. How do you feel about I know your field situation sometimes dictates that has to happen, but how do you kind of handle those Saturday games, getting ready for them, and then coming back out of them into the next week?
Yeah, it's definitely hard, and sometimes it is field related. I mean, we do share a field to rent, Mount Juliet Christian Academy's field, which is a wonderful facility, and we're grateful to work around their schedule. This past week was actually self-inflicted. I mean, MJCA was on the road. We could have played Friday, but we do a homecoming festivity for our Heat athletes, and this was homecoming week. And the only time we could get the church for the dance was on a Friday night. So that makes it hard too, because it was a long week with a pep rally, and then we had, the dance, and then a Saturday night game. And so, yeah, we're going to have to fight through a little bit of a short and, amount of rest. But I think the hype and the excitement of what this game means this Friday night, the difference of hosting a game in the playoffs, something we haven't done. I don't know. It's been a long time if we've ever done it. I'm not really aware of when we did, but it's been a long time, and that would be an exciting opportunity. So this game means a lot. We're going to definitely put everything into it. It's the most important week of practice we've had this season.
Now you guys of course had some new guys come in last night. The Corley twins. Matt switched to quarterback, and you've had Carter for a few years, and they all kind of know each other. But what was the vibe? What was the vibe during practice this week with Matt kind of moving into that quarterback position, and with the guys knowing that, hey, you know what, this is we've got a new guy, so you kind of got to get him up to speed. How was the vibe any different getting ready for Bowling Green than it was maybe any of the prior weeks?
Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. I mean, we're a program that if we don't take players, as they figure out that we exist, or as they come to the realization that they want to be a homeschool athlete and go through the process of, sitting out the 2 weeks from being registered as a homeschool student, like the Corley boys did, it makes it hard to transition them in. But the two Corley brothers, twin brothers that have known one of our players, Carter Sutton, who's played with us for 3 years now, best of friends. So just that connection, that relationship has helped make it easy for them. They've been playing football a long time. Their dad has really just been a major asset for them and helping and developing them. And Matthew, for example, we thought he was going to be competing with Brandon Goolsby for quarterback. Brandon decided to go ahead and hand him the reins. It was his decision not to compete. He wanted to play receiver, and I think it was a good decision for the team and for Brandon. And so Matthew prepared all week as the starting quarterback, and I think that really helped us, just not having that competition and just being able to give him the reins. So just very proud of the boys for all folding together and being very unified last night. We got some things to work on defense, but we played some good defensive games. I mean, we played defensively very well against the Freedom Cowboys until the end of the game. It was a very, very physical game. And then we played as Christian Community pretty physical defensively. Our offense didn't show up that night. So we're just excited about trying to get the defense firing on all cylinders and the offense continue to do like it did last night.
I mentioned it a little bit before we brought you on, but for me, it seemed like Brandon Goolsby, especially playing defense, it was almost like he was able to let loose a little bit more. And of course, he's still kind of adapting to playing defense. Not full time because he was on defense, but it seemed to me like it was almost a different mindset on defense. That if he went down, he wasn't the starting quarterback, and so he had to be a little more careful. I got that vibe. Was that kind of correct, or how did you feel about the way that he played?
Yeah, no, 100% right, James. I mean, I think that was one of the things, like Coach Diaz is our defensive coordinator, and he's wanted to play Brandon at defensive end even. And we have played him at free safety. We've been using him at corner lately. He's a pretty physical player on the edge, good tackler, and has never been afraid of contact. He likes it actually. So Coach Diaz was asking to play him at defensive end, and I said, no, he's our starting quarterback. I'm not comfortable with him being in the interior line or on the front line like that. But having him not be the quarterback, it did two things. One, it allows us to play him at different places. He had 2 sacks at defensive end last night, so he was very instrumental,
Right.
bringing pressure off the edge. But also, just as a receiver, you can see the life in him. He's such a great kid, very coachable. Never, really given me a hard time, even when things are bad. We have, a quarterback is a tough position, and he took a lot of pressure sometimes from me, and just seeing him not have that pressure on him and just getting to really play a position that he really enjoys and has confidence in, it's a whole different situation for him. I'm very happy for him.
Now, Coach, you guys have a big divisional matchup. Obviously, you've clinched the playoff berth, but you guys host the South Haven Christian School Patriots, who always put up a good show against any opponents they have, especially with Zimmerman at the helm. And they've still got guys like Andrew Crawley and Emmanuel Dang, who are just, that combination is very tough to play against. And you mentioned it yourself in practice. You guys will have some things to work on defense. What's the main game plan for you guys, or at least the message you're giving to your guys to try and stop that high-powered South Haven offense?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great matchup with them last year. It was a very close game, very exciting,
It was
came
a fun
down to
one to
the
watch.
wire. Yeah, I mean, I would say that the game was won, in my opinion, really with special teams last year. I mean, Preston
For
Sloan
sure.
ran 2 punt returns back. That was the difference maker because honestly, they played us so well, both offensively and defensively. And Emmanuel Dang was injured in that game, so I really think that this is going to be a real good challenge for us. I have a lot of we have a lot of respect for South Haven, and I think they're once again going to be a formidable opponent. I think that for us defensively, we're just going to continue to go to the basics. We're trying to do a lot of individual training and drills. I think everybody knows their assignment. We just got to work on the discipline. And we saw some good things, even though, like I said, we gave up a lot of points last night. There were some really positive things when we started, playing together in the second quarter and in parts of the third quarter. So, we just really got to train, I think, on some of the fundamentals and really make sure that we're drilling the discipline so that we can play a little better.
Well, just to clear this up, Max Preps does not keep track of when the MTAC had some games it does, but it doesn't really keep track of the D2 or the bowl playoffs. When they did all that. So in terms of actual Division I full-on playoffs, I'm looking at Max Preps, and it's saying you guys have never hosted a playoff game. So It's kind of huge. That's kind of big.
Really huge if you can get the W.
I wasn't sure. I mean, our former coach that got us going, Steve Herndon, he could probably answer that. I'll check with him
he
on
would
that.
Probably have a better answer, yeah.
He'd probably have a better answer, but that in my memory, and I've coached with the Heat for almost 10 years now. I used to be the defensive coordinator before I took a year off, so I was part of it. I just don't recall us. I know we were in the playoffs, but I don't recall us ever truly hosting a game on our home field. So pretty exciting opportunity that, like you said, it's huge.
Would you rather this game coming up with South Haven? Of course, it's massive. Would you rather have that game at home like it is, or would you rather be on the road and maybe make sure that the guys don't have as many distractions around them going into that Friday night matchup?
No, definitely feel like we have an advantage at home. I believe we play better at home. I mean, we won the game against Lighthouse at home. We have a good field. Most of our players live in the Mount Juliet area. We have a lot of boys that do have to travel, because we are a team of homeschool athletes. But home field is definitely an advantage for us. So we're definitely excited to host the game this Friday night.
Absolutely.
Well, Coach, we thank you for taking time to come on the show. We'll definitely get you on the show sooner than later next year. But
All right.
Best of luck to you guys on Friday night against the Patriots, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys in the playoffs.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to give a shout out to James on the Enfuego comment. If nobody else got it, I did. That is a good one, and we love the Heat references.
I'm full of them. I have. Okay, so here's the thing. I love you guys' entrance. Of course, I've seen it several times throughout the year. But there's a specific song that starts out with a drum beat, and then a guy yells, "Burn it down." And I have lobbied over and over and over again for that to be your intro at some point this year.
All right,
so,
we can talk about it. I'll definitely consider that. But
we got to make that happen.
Any Heat references, we love it. So
well, it's easier for you guys, too. It's easier, too, with a name like the Heat.
It is. Well, you guys appreciate what y'all do, and looking forward to having the opportunity to be on the show again. Thanks.
Well, good luck Friday night, Coach.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That was Coach Ryan Scott of the Tennessee Heat. Pleasure to have him on the show. It's one of the many great interviews we get to have on the show.
He's a good guy. Good guy.
By far. It's that time again, James. It's time for us to preview the games. But before we get to the high school games, special announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, do we want to start a drum roll for this? Or
Hang on. I got it. Ready?
For the first time in 8-Man Extreme history, we're doing a middle school game.
Ta-da!
We will be live on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. from May Flanders Field in White House, Tennessee. We will be broadcasting the MTAC Middle School Championship game between the Christian Community Colts and the Franklin Christian Academy Falcons. And at the moment, we don't have any specific box scores from FCA and such, but we'll be building up the hype throughout the week. But
CCS has only allowed 14 points all year.
They have scored 341 total out of, 2, 4, 6, 7 games, and they've only allowed 14, and FCA did not score any. It was a 44-0 game. So FCA looking for a little vengeance there, looking to get another title. Now, in 2012, this is the first time MTAC has officially regulated a middle school season and had
a championship game.
A championship for it. 2012, Franklin Christian, they did win the Williamson County championship there in 2012 because I think there was a middle school team or such, and they got a trophy for it.
Did some 11-man there?
Yeah, I think it was 8-man. It was 8-man in 2012. It was
8-man in Williamson County?
County champions.
They won't even let Tennessee high school football broadcast at their schools. I can't imagine them doing something like an 8-man.
Well, that was 2012.
No, that's true.
As the councils change. But Last time it was a 44-0 score. Christian Community hosted them, and they host them again. So it's going to be an interesting game, and there's some big stats to especially look forward to big things throughout the game. But regardless, we get to give these middle school players an outlet for them to be looked at, and Benjamin Pugh has led the team well.
You know what I'm excited about, Spence? Who is the head coach for FCA?
Head coach, former Titans punter.
Craig Hentrick. That's kind of cool. I'm down with that.
He's Greg Hentrick, the former Titans punter. He's against Benjamin Pugh, who was the offensive
coordinator. Is it Benjamin or Ben?
It says Benjamin on the roster.
Yeah, but like
we'll just say Ben Pugh.
He's Ben on my phone.
We'll just say Ben, but at least for Coach Pugh,
we need official confirmation. Is it Ben or is it Benjamin?
I'm sure I'll say something, but he was the offensive coordinator at Franklin Christian Academy for several years, led him to an MTAC championship in 2015. After 2016, went to actually 2017 he was with them, and then went to Christian Community 2018, helped coach them to a championship, and he's potentially going to coach the Colts to a middle school championship for the inaugural regulation by MTAC.
Yep.
You going to go into the stats? We got key stats on here from the.
You're just going to have to tune into the broadcast Tuesday night.
All right.
On our YouTube channel as well. But guess what? You can subscribe and hit the bell, and you'll know when we go live.
Yep. Well,
that's all you got to do.
About 6:30 we'll go live, and it's going to be the whole shebang, pre-stadium intros, all of that, just like the championship last year, trophy presentation, all that. Give a great outlet to the players and give them the exposure they deserve, and it's a season of firsts for us, James. First game from Alabama. The first game from Alabama this year with the Evangel game, first middle school game.
First year, not just first year we've done a game in Alabama. First game we've done 2 games in Alabama.
2. No, I'm saying at the point we have only done one. There may be a second one. You just spoiled it. There may be a second one.
There will be a second one.
He's saying that, but
possibly 3.
Get the guy. Don't even start.
Maybe
with
4.
Don't even start with the more different ones.
Listen, we've talked about asking the league to move the playoffs to 2 and 7 on a Saturday, or maybe even a 3 and 8. That wouldn't be a terrible idea. But if that happens, guess what? That opens up Friday nights.
Yeah, I know.
The CFA championship game is November 1st on a Friday night. Hey, there you go.
You're asking me to have my voice shot with doing 3 games.
I will do play-by-play for it. We will get a color guy, and you can run the tech.
Oh, I see how it is. That's who your third guy is. I see how it is.
You're the third guy.
I'm fine with doing it.
Okay, I know you're fine with that.
I'm fine with pushing through, but you're asking me to push my voice.
Guess what we'll try to find down
there. But yeah, several of us have asked the league to do 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. playoff games for the first and second round, and there are a lot of great reasons behind it. But of course, it's up to the league and the schools on if they're willing to do that. But it's
oh my gosh.
I know we're looking at an NFL play right now.
Anyways,
but hopefully we could do that so we have the lapel mic on the referee for both games.
I'd love to have
the same
that
standard. But of course, it's
although we do have 2 lapel mics.
We do have 2, but we'd have to make sure the module's adjusted. But regardless, it's going to be really interesting to see how that middle school game plays out. Playoffs coming up for MTAC in a few weeks, but we're ready for that game.
And I've always been interested. I haven't followed middle school, but I do keep an eye on it because you look at take Riverside for example. All the Riverside guys who are massive starters and leaders right now on the team all played middle school. Crutcher Ezell, Raymond Hunt, Michael Black. Some of these young guys coming up, maybe even David and Riley, they all were on that middle school JV team. So, all the young guys that are you see these programs that, might die or, might not be around. It's ones that more than likely, some of the ones that are struggling don't have JV teams. If you've got a JV team and a middle school team, guess what? You're getting guys in your system at 6th, 7th grade and getting them used to, the plays and getting them in that football shape so by the time they hit their freshman year, they've already been playing for 2 years, and you're not starting a kid at freshman and then waiting 2 years till he's a junior for him to pay off. So that's something that some teams and some schools might want to look at is getting that middle school team.
Not only that, but, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head for that point is that all these guys in middle school, they're
the future.
Either Christian Community or Frank Christian, whoever wins that championship, Those are the players you're looking at for going up to
Yep.
the next level.
Yep.
And of course MTAC rules is that it's 8th grade up can play in varsity. Imagine any of these 8th graders put on a stellar performance in here. They could very well be on the roster for Christian Community in the playoffs.
For Christian Community in the playoffs, yeah. Or for FCA and some of the upcoming, like the Battle of Franklin.
Yeah.
But like for CCS, you got Micah Jones at quarterback right now, but he's a senior.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you bring in a JV quarterback or a middle school quarterback? Do you have a guy that you're developing that's already in high school, and then you're bringing this middle school guy behind him? You have to plan for the future. So that's what we'll get to see Tuesday night. Some of these guys that are the future of their programs. And it'll be good. It'll be good to get that experience. And we were on your old stomping grounds Friday night.
You're on
Be
your
back
old
on my old
stomping
stomping grounds
Saturday.
Tuesday night. It's
Yeah.
very special.
You might be there for the playoffs.
It's your
Who
school.
knows?
Hey, you want to make a bet?
No, not really. But
It's FCA CCS. You want to do it?
oh, you want to do the jersey?
You want to
thing?
do the jersey hat?
I can't do it post game solely because I'll be helping present the trophies
After
on
the
the field.
trophies.
But after the trophies,
Post
sure.
trophies.
Sure.
Let's do it.
So
Let's make that happen.
Favor to ask of the athletic directors for both schools, please, if you can, get a jersey and a cap ready.
Or the
ready.
or those middle school coaches. You
Or
guys
the middle
can,
school
you guys
coaches,
can make
whoever
it
it
happen.
is. Yeah, please, if you can, have a jersey and a cap on standby for
I
your
will
team.
love seeing Spencer in a CCS cap and.
See, here's the thing.
I have my old jersey. I will bring my own jersey, my old jersey.
Okay.
My old number 68 jersey, and
Wash
you can wear it.
You better wash it.
Of course I'll wash it.
We know you. We know
Of course
you.
I'll wash it.
We
What
know
are you
on
talking
the,
about?
We know on the weekends you wear it in your to go reminisce in the past times. We know you wear it on the weekends.
What?
We know you wear it on the weekends
What?
to reminisce in your
Do
past
you have your old
times.
FCA soccer jersey?
No, actually, no. There's a story behind that. I gave my
Story for another time.
my goalkeeper jersey to the bus driver for FCA. I signed it and gave it to him to hang up in his house. So no, I don't have it.
Can you hit him up and get it back?
I'm not gonna get it back.
Just for one night?
Why would I need it for one night?
I don't know.
It doesn't even have FCA on it. It's just an orange padded goalkeeper jersey.
You better not give me a middle school jersey either. I ain't fitting in a middle school
You
jersey.
just said the middle school coaches that
I'm
they
not
could get a
fitting in no
jersey
middle
and save
school
up.
jersey though.
Then that's why I asked the athletic directors to have
Get a
jerseys on
full-size
standby.
jersey. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Done.
So yeah, Tuesday.
Bet is on.
Christian Community, Franklin Christian Middle School Championship. We're proud to be there. And it's the first thing we're doing for Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
How
That
about
starts
that?
on Tuesday.
How about that? Hey, keep an eye out for some fire merch.
Oh yeah, start some fire
Cooking
merch.
it up.
It's gonna be some good fire merch. Okay, varsity this weekend. Time to follow on your helmet schedules.
Enough
top
with the
to
little boy
bottom.
football.
Well, we're gonna cover it. Cover it on.
Yeah,
Tuesday,
but that's enough for today. Enough
that's
little
it.
boy football for today.
I don't like the way you're phrasing that, but follow on your helmet schedules top to bottom for week 9 of the season. We start with Bowling Green Christian Academy. They were going to face off against Sacred Heart, but with them dropping out, they picked up a game. They are hosting the Lighthouse Christian School Lions. And James, lucky for you, you couldn't predict this pre-jamboree because it wasn't on the schedule. So you get to do a week decision of who
Thanks
you
for
think
putting
is
that
gonna
pressure
be
on
in
me
that
there,
game.
Spence.
But for both teams, they've played against each other before, and if you go to 8manextreme.com and look at the scores, or the Tennessee High School football app, preferably 8manextreme.com, you go back to the score of that Bowling Green Lighthouse game in week 3.
Wait. Can I tell you what it was?
I'm looking at
It was 52-46.
52-46. So the website says 56-48.
Well, the website's gonna have to get fixed.
Yep, website's got to get fixed, but 52-46 was the final
Guess
score.
what? We are constantly changing this.
Bowling Green got the victory
constantly
on the
fixing
road.
this website, and that's what I'm about to do right now.
Bowling Green got the victory on the road there, and it was a back-and-forth game when you look at the box score. So for the rematch of this, Lighthouse gets another shot to try and get vengeance on that, get another win on their season, and a motivational win to have their bye week afterwards and then face off against the Colts. So it's really going to be an interesting game to see. But James, it's time for you to make your week prediction.
Bowling Green is rolling. They've got some guys that got hot last night against the Heat, and I love what they're doing. I really do. They had a big win against Lighthouse at Lighthouse, but you know what? I think Aiden Hooper is balling. I think Lighthouse has really gotten it rolling. Too little, too late, possibly, but I'm going to take Lighthouse on this one. I think Lighthouse goes into Bowling Green and picks it. Lighthouse, here's the other thing. Lighthouse has never lost in Bowling Green. Now, of course, Bowling Green had never beat Lighthouse at home, but Lighthouse has never lost in Bowling Green, and I don't think it starts Friday night.
So they've never lost in Bowling Green.
Right. Well, and Bowling Green had never won at Lighthouse until early this season.
We might see.
But I'm going to take Lighthouse in this one.
All right. Other game that's going on, we can't build it up enough. The South Haven Christian School Patriots take a road travel not that far from Springfield to Mount Juliet. It's the Patriots and the Heat.
It's the drive I made last night.
And again, can't build this enough. This is the last playoff deciding game of the year. Whoever wins this game, they get to host a playoff game. Whoever loses, they're going to have to travel on the road to either Lancaster or Ezel. So you're basically fighting for potentially I'm not going to say an easier match because obviously Riverside lost to both Ezel and Lancaster, but Riverside is still a competitive team. So that begs the question, of course, would you rather host a playoff game or travel? Obviously, for most teams, they would say they'd rather host a playoff game in their home crowd.
He'd rather host.
Ryan Scott would rather host. But regardless of playoff implications, the Patriots, they may be on an every other year pattern to where where in 2017, when they entered the league for the first time, they only had one loss. That was to Christian Community. Ended up winning the MTAC championship.
Well, back up. 2016, they were winless. That was their first year in the league.
Correct.
2016
you're
was
right.
their first year
2016,
in the league.
That's
They were winless. 2015, their last year in TACS, and the last year TACS was around, they won the title that year.
And then lost in the national championship, I think. Was that it? I think they lost that national championship that year.
Yeah, I think so. I think they lost to Sacred Heart.
2016 took their losses. 2017 won the MTAC championship. 2018 did not get a single win, but now in 2019 they only have one.
They were
loss.
close to some wins though.
Yep, very close. And in 2019 they've only got their loss to Christian Community. They did lose to Franklin Christian at their first game of the week, but with only two losses and one of those in division, the Patriots are looking to host a playoff game at MLK Park.
You know what? I know that Ryan Scott wants a crack at Riverside at home again. And that's what would happen if the Heat were to beat South Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I know that South Haven would love to host Riverside because they've got to go to Riverside the last week of the season. They'd love to have a locked-in game against Riverside at home. The first scenario is going to happen. I'm taking the Tennessee Heat on this one.
Ooh, you're taking the Tennessee Heat at home. So the other North team active, as we mentioned, Christian Community School is taking a long travel. They did 2 years ago, and they won. I believe the score was 28-0, where they won 2 years ago against the Freedom Cowboys in Huntsville. And last year, the Cowboys held them to a score of 16-0 at home at May Flanders Field.
They still lost. CCS won.
CCS won. So Freedom is on a 2-loss streak, but with the Colts traveling down to Alabama with many factors involved, it could be a challenge, especially with Freedom off of that hot win from Frank Christian. But the question is, the dynasty of Christian community, does it keep rolling in this game?
Well, I think CCS is going to have a fire lit under them with what happened in that Azell game. Freedom had a great win, honestly. They really did. But you see, when Freedom plays teams like Evangel and Ezekiel, they do struggle against them. And I think they struggle Friday night. You know what? For 1 week, I'm going to be a homer. I'm taking CCS at Freedom. Homer in terms of picking Tennessee over Alabama, not picking CCS. But I am picking CCS over Freedom with the win.
It's going to be interesting to see for that. Going down to the South. A big playoff implication game, a win from either of these teams, and they are officially clinching a playoff berth. So finally, the South is going to clinch a playoff berth one way or another. That's Riverside Christian Academy at Lancaster Christian Academy. One of the more tough games for both of those teams. The number currently, as it stands, the number 3 seed against the either 1 or 2 by a coin flip. But Lancaster Christian, again, you look at their defensive stats. Through the total of 7 games, they've only allowed 74 points combined in 7 games total. And Riverside's defense in 6 games has allowed 142. Now, granted, Riverside did have a shutout against Franklin Christian, but this is very impactful. A win from Riverside, and that could put them that'll put them potentially to the number 2 slot. But a win from Lancaster, and that solidifies that they're either number 1 or number 2 seed, and that locks Riverside's place with an FCA loss. But again, put all playoff implications aside, this is going to be a very tough match and one of Lancaster's toughest challenges of the year.
Well, Riverside has won 5 games in a row after dropping that game to Ezell. That was very winnable. It was a very winnable game. Lancaster, I think there's some things that, they're going to have to address after that classical game. Again, Lancaster won, but they had to get up and rolling. They weren't able to just jump out to a lead like they have been against some teams. That being said, you know what? The game is at Lancaster. Riverside's going to have to take a quick little trip up there. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a successful business trip. I'm picking Riverside over Lancaster.
Ooh. That some people might tell you with a hot take for that, especially with the
That's fine.
Let
me tell you how I am
with 74 points allowed in 7 games compared to 142 in 6 games. That's probably one of the classified hot takes.
Let me tell you how I am with hot takes so far this year, Spencer. If I can have a weird flex.
Sure.
I'm 34-7, so just going to leave that there.
2 of your losses coming from this past weekend.
But
again, pre-Jamboree, 2 weeks before the Jamboree when you made
3 weeks before the season.
And to only have 7 losses out of, 43 games so far? That's not too bad.
7 out of 41.
So that's 7 out of 41 wrong? That's not too bad. That's like a 30
don't even guess.
30-something
Don't even guess. Don't even guess. I've got it right here. Ready? It's...
You're wrong about 12% of the time.
83%.
You're right 83% of the time.
I'm right,
so a solid B.
It went down from 9.
Minus,
it went down from I was right 90% of the time.
And
it went down to 83. 83 still a good click. I'll take 83 any day.
Great report card, all Bs. The Ezell Harding Eagles not hosting. They are traveling to Jim Warren Park, where we were at this past weekend, on senior night for the Franklin Christian Academy Falcons. And again, if Franklin Christian wins this game and then wins the Battle of Franklin, they're in the playoffs. But if they take a loss here, they're mathematically eliminated. So it's a very tough game that the Falcons have ahead of them. For Ezell, they just keep rolling. Ever since that loss to Evangel, they're on a 3-0 streak, and 2 of those games being against North opponents. Well, they're 2-0. They have a forfeit win from St. Andrew Swanee since that loss to Evangel. But, of course, with them being completely unbeaten by conference teams, the big question looming over is, can the Eagles be stopped? Or more so, with the Falcons losing their starting quarterback, do they have a reasonable chance at this game?
Well, let me backtrack to earlier in the show. 8manextreme.com is correct. The final was 56-48, Bowling Green beating the White House. Okay, that out of the way. Ezell's on a roll. FCA struggling. Even with it being senior night for FCA, a lot of emotions. I'm taking the Eagles on this one. Big win. They're going to keep rolling. FCA, you know what? You're trying, and I'm not going to write them off. They're in a rebuilding year. They've been in a rebuilding year, even with Holcomb at quarterback. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of talent. Andrew Hasley, who has a little bit of a bang up on his foot, so we'll see what happens there. But Asa Sheets, you got big old Jackson Lagnus up front. Mm-hmm. The Carpenter brothers, they could do a little bit more, but you've got Zach Dooley at quarterback, and so I think that team is just going to continue to mesh. Look out for them next year. But I do have the Eagles winning this one Friday night.
The other game going on Thursday, actually, the Tennessee School for the Deaf Vikings, they flip-flopped, and they're hosting the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind. Vikings looking to rally back. In the 4 games they've played, they have allowed 174 points, looking to keep that number through 5 games on their matchup. But it's going to be an interesting game to see.
This one, I'm an unapologetic homer. I'm taking good old Tennessee to beat South Carolina.
And big shocker for you guys, even though we had coach on board, we had both coaches from the matchup that we're doing. We had them both interviewed on the show, so had to get a different.
Well,
guest,
and it was a big win last night. They got a big game
yeah.
coming up. It was a no-brainer to ask Ryan.
Exactly. We will be live from Franklin Classical School this Friday. The St. Andrew Swanee Mountain Lions, their first time on the 8-Man Extreme broadcast this year. It was going to be their FCA game, but they had to
Extreme Game of the Week.
Extreme Game of the Week. The Mountain Lions travel up to Franklin, about an hour and a half drive. And the last time we broadcasted their collision game was 2017, when that game was a pivotal turning point in potential playoff seasons. Of course, they ended up in the bowl game.
Well, Swanee had a big win that year. They had a stacked team.
They had a stacked team, but the Mountain Lions and the Classical School Knights is going to be an amazing game to call from the bleachers. And even though we're broadcasting it, somebody's got to make a pick, which should be you, James.
I know it's me.
You just stayed silent.
I was looking at the amazingness that is Aaron Donald.
That red zone is on in here just to somewhat go by. It's not for us to be fully distracted.
Hang on. I mentioned Aaron Donald. It made me think of something. Hang on.
James
Wait
not
for
being
it.
prepared as
Wait
usual.
for it. It's not being unprepared. It's not being unprepared. I want to. It made me think about something with Freedom. They're if you're on defense, looking at the right defensive end, he's a massive player. Anyways, I am taking Franklin Classical on this one.
You're going to elaborate on that with the matchup?
I think they're on a roll. They were able to do some good things against Lancaster, and Swanee's struggling. Swanee definitely scores. Caleb McLean, if he's able to be back, will definitely bring another level to the team. Their defense is going to be able to step up, hopefully against Classical's offense, which at times has struggled, but they're going to get them back on track. And Classical's going to, I said 2 very winnable games for both teams, but I do think Classical picks up the win there. They could pick up the win against FCA in a couple weeks, and then they could wrap up the season 4-5.
It's potential for them to have that, but that is going to basically wrap up Extreme Radio. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, go ahead and enter in the Chick-fil-A giveaway. Go to 8manextreme.com, submit an application, and once you get your entries paid for,
well, it's not even so much an application; it's just an entry. You're just entering into the contest.
Enter into the contest. Why not?
Spencer, how do you know when your entry is locked in?
Once you pay your PayPal invoice.
All right.
Simple as that.
There you go.
That'll wrap it up for Extreme Radio today, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com. Mention you're with 8Man Extreme. When you request your appointment online, you get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. Sponsored by Dr. Sterling Foster. Visit drsterlingfoster.com for all your digestive issues and chiropractic needs.
And the way you're going to get those digestive issues, potentially, if you eat too much of the Jets pizza, it's good stuff. Sometimes you can overeat on it a little bit. Possibly when we go to Alabama next week, maybe. Try to find the Jets down there. Try to get some Jets pizza in us. I gotta have that fuel there, Spence. Gotta have that fuel. We're gonna have to look at Knoxville too. See if Tennessee School for the Deaf's got.
They probably have a Jets
They've got
out
some
there.
Jets. They've got to have
It's
Jets
a big
up
enough
there.
city. I'm sure
Yeah,
they've got
to
one.
have some Jets up there. We'll grab some Jets up there too. But hey, listen, no matter where you are, specifically in Springfield, Clarksville, Fort Campbell, coming soon to Goodlettsville, no matter where you are though, it's always a great time to say let's get Jets. And hey,
it's always a good
it's
time
always
to
a great
say.
time to go check out IHateBuyingInsurance.com. Our buddy Joe Graves, he will get you hooked up. Just give him a shot, give him a chance, see what he can do for you. IHateBuyingInsurance.com.
Loaded week for us. Tuesday, we got the middle school championship of the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference. Franklin Christian Academy. The Falcons travel to May Flanders Field against the Christian Community School Colts for the title. I wonder what the size of that trophy is going to be compared to the MTAC football trophy. I wonder if it's going to be the same.
It's a first-year trophy, so then it needs to be a decent-sized trophy.
Hopefully it will be. So Tuesday we'll be there live at about 6:30. Subscribe, get the bell on. You'll know exactly when we go live. And Friday we will be in Franklin. The St. Andrew Swanee Mountain Lions travel to face off against the Franklin Classical School Knights. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Extreme Radio. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Clear. I don't know if you
Sorry,
should,
my throat hurts. I'm just.
Yeah, I don't know if you should even clear your throat.
Also, no extreme talk. Just to answer some questions. Another break. It's hard. Let me address this, okay? It's hard. Last year I didn't have as much on my plate. I was able to get more interviews in and do a little bit more with Extreme Talk. This year, being full-time commentator, being on the show full-time, everything that we're doing, it's hard to get interviews lined up and get them straightened up. So still working on getting some interviews lined up, getting them recorded. So as soon as we get another Straight Talk set up, we will definitely let you know. But especially this week with having both games, we're not going to have one this week.
That'll wrap it up for Extreme Radio today. On behalf of James Shannon, all of the hardworking men and women that make 8-Man Extreme successful. Again, Tuesday, MTAC Middle School Championship. Friday, Mountain Lions and the Classical Knights. So we will see you Tuesday for the Middle School Championship.
See ya!